Thinking about lifetimes, it does and doesn't feel like it was 3/5 of my lifetime ago that I met Nan, which was back around 1979. I was running the photography program at Castelli Gallery in New York and had taken a break from looking at people's portfolios. Although one day Nan called and asked if she could come by and show me pictures, and was convincing enough that I said, "What the hell?" and said, "Come on in." That day she showed up at the gallery with, I don't remember if it was a Ilford box or a Kodak. It was yellow or orange, and in it were about 24 prints. And I remember opening up the box and just being astounded by what I had seen, what I was looking at. I had never seen anything like that before. And so soon afterwards, I did a summer exhibition and put Nan's work in that. And what's interesting was that it turned out that about a year or so after that, one of the reasons I left the gallery was because I wanted to do a one-person show of Nan's work, and they wouldn't let me. So I left, I quit. And then for most of the 1980s, I represented a number of artists, Nan being foremost among them, and did what I could to spread the word about Nan's work and helped to produce the Ballad of Sexual Dependency in its live performance, slideshow, and book forms, which was an extraordinary experience to have. And often, being with Nan in venues where the ballad was presented, and in between, kind of standing behind her, handing off carousels of slides to her as the soundtrack was playing, I could see and I could sense firsthand the impact that the work was having, and it was extraordinary. I'd never seen anything like that before. If back then the work felt very much of the moment, what's equally clear now is how powerfully Nan's work continues to visualize and represent people's lives in interconnection and influence visual culture today. What she does in her art and her activism is speak to our strengths and our weaknesses and our shortcomings and our lives and our losses and our values and our passion. Sitting in the audience 2 years ago watching the documentary that Brian mentioned that's about Nan, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, and having worked now with generations of photography students over the past 30 years, the ongoing interest and legacy of Nan's work is absolutely clear to me. Works of art, like the people who make them and the people who view them, change over the course of their lifetimes. And so do arts organizations, which is why it's such an honor to be here tonight in this fantastic space that CPW's got and is just beginning to grow into, and to present Nan with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you.
Look at that. You can sit down. I'm going to be here a long time. So I was told to talk for 7 minutes, but you got to multiply sometimes. So get ready. First of all, I want to say I'm very touched and grateful to be receiving this award. I want to thank Brian Willis and Clinton Cartel and the whole staff and jury of CPW for selecting me. I'm really grateful. I'm honored to be in the company of such brilliant former winners like Dawood Bay, Carrie Mae Weems, and my friend Vince Saletti. I also want to extend my congratulations to Anne Milai and Keisha Scarville, as well as those involved with the wonderful book collaboration. I also want to thank Gagosian Gallery, who has stood by me in spite of everything. And most of all, I want to call out Marvin Heiferman, who discovered me. He was the first person who really saw my photographs. He supported me, and he remained my conduit to the photo world for 10 years before he could unload me into the art world. And he did everything. He did everything for me. He's remained a brilliant voice in the photography world, encouraging people to see more. He spoke here, and I hope people heard his gut-wrenching, brilliant lecture, which is also available on YouTube, about how we use photography to stave off loss. I would say this is also one of my primary driving forces behind my work. During the AIDS epidemic, I thought that if I photographed my friends enough, I would never lose them. But as we know, photography leaves only a shadow of a person without the smell, the voice, and sharing air. It's weird to get a lifetime achievement. It makes you feel a little bit like you're embalmed. It's like how I refused to buy a senior ticket to the movies for 5 years. It reminds you of your age and mortality. Thinking about my life, I've lived many lives. The one constant is that I've always used photography to survive and bear witness. Receiving a lifetime award reminds you that you're an old lady, and it's not a pretty position to be in this country, where old ladies are invisible. But I've embraced that. It's really nice to be invisible, actually. It occurs to you that this award implies that your work is over. This is not the case for me. I'm still working. I'm creating 2 new pieces. I have a retrospective traveling around Europe called This Will Not End Well. I know I will work until the day I die, or a few days before. I want to leave a legacy that shows I was on the right side of history and that I tried to effect change. I believe being an elder gives you permission to speak your truth. I have a big mouth, which is unfiltered. I think it's the role of the photographer and artist to show us something we've never seen. Artists need to take risks. That's their role in life. I believe we need to be as fearless as we can. I've always had a romantic vision of what an artist is. We are people who are blessed with heightened awareness and sensitivity and share this with the world to expand their view. I'm sure that mentality is not shared by many anymore, but I still hold on to it. I know part of the CPW mandate is to work for community and social justice. I highly commend that. I believe it's the role of the artist to be political, to use their voice. Political can mean many things. Representation is political. In my case, photographing the Queens in Boston in the early 70s when they were invisible and showing the world their beauty. It was never about being a photographer. It was about photographing my friends for them. I followed that path my whole life. This has been true from the AIDS epidemic to the overdose crisis to Palestine. I curated the first show about AIDS in New York that was censored by the government in 1989. I photographed my friends with AIDS, not as people with AIDS, but as my loved ones who are the victims of a government that remained silent. It was ACT UP, an activist group that fought and won many battles, including pushing the scientific community to release life-saving medication. I started a group in 2017 based on ACT UP called P.A.I.N. People struggling with addiction were invisible. We went after the Sackler family in the museums that they had given their money and art to, who manufactured the strongest opioid ever on the market and sold it like candy. They were the clearest example of toxic philanthropy. Their drug flooded the streets and ignited the overdose crisis, which has caused almost 3.5 million deaths of Americans since the 90s. When people's prescriptions ran out, they turned to street drugs, and the drug supply is contaminated. I'm proud that I, with a community of 12 friends, and my brilliant lawyer, Mike Quinn, who's here tonight, managed to bring down a billionaire family in these days. We spent 2.5 years in bankruptcy court with the help of Sandy Alexander from Boston, who's also here. And the case is now in the Supreme Court, yet to be decided. I would like most of all to believe our work helped amplify the discussion of the opioid crisis in the public. I want to discuss Instagram. I started using it when I started P.A.I.N as a political platform. Now I use Instagram to teach myself about the world. It may not be the most intellectual platform, but it's the most present. What I do understand is that we're able to watch the war on Gaza in real time, with dispatches from people who are actually living and dying there. I can't look away. What has been made clear to me is the disconnect from reality that so many people have now, and that they can look away. What does the photography mean now if it's unable to help a people to survive a genocide? People don't believe photographs anymore, especially in this day of encroaching AI falsity. People look to the New York Times as the paper of record, but in fact, it's been spinning a completely fake narrative as it's reporting rapes that can't be substantiated and says Palestinians are dying instead of being killed. Recently, an internal memo leaked about the New York Times exposed that journalists have been prevented from using terms like genocide, ethnic cleansing, and occupied territory in their reporting, and are discouraged from using the word Palestine. This is the first time we can witness war crimes on our phones in real time. That makes us responsible. Can you imagine if it had been possible to watch the war in Vietnam, the ethnic cleansing in Bosnia, or any other Holocaust on your phone? Would we have turned away then? We need to bear witness as the death toll passes 34,012 people, 22,000 of them women and children, and people are starving to death. Even if we are unable to change what is going on, we need to speak out. But voices are being silenced. This is a chilling time when McCarthyism is in full effect. I'm proud to be working with Jewish Voices for Peace, who are amplifying the voices of thousands of Jews that support Palestine, who've never been heard before, as well as Writers Against the War on Gaza, whose mandate includes protecting journalists. I dedicate my award to the 108 journalists who have been killed in Gaza since October 7th. My heart is broken.